Hi, my name is Abby Norton, and I will be doing my presentation on psychoanalysis. Antecedents to psychoanalysis include Leibniz and his methodology, which showed that based on the number of monads, the level of awareness varies from apperception to perceptions. Goethe stated that the human experience is a constant struggle between conflicting emotion and tendencies, which inspired Freud. Herbert's threshold states that the threshold above an idea is the unconscious mind, and, quote, Leibniz foreshadowed the entire doctrine of the unconscious, but Herbert actually began it, end quote, and that is from the textbook. Schopenhauer thought that humans are governed by irrational desires rather than reason, and Nietzsche believed that humans engage in the battle between irrational and rational thought or tendencies. Fechner included the threshold concept in his own work and compared the mind to an iceberg, with the consciousness being at the top and the smallest part of the iceberg. Freud would utilize a lot of Fechner's work in his studies, including the iceberg model. Brentano was a teacher of Freud who would discuss motivational factors that heavily influence the flow of thought and the difference between objective and subjective realities. And Carl Edward von Hartmann wrote The Philosophy of the Unconscious. He believed that the psychological unconscious governs all behavior. Joseph Breuer was a well-respected physician and researcher and one of Freud's friends. Breuer had a number of discoveries, but his work with Anna O, who was a 21-year-old with hysteria, influenced Freud heavily. While treating Anna with hypnosis and the cathartic method, they engaged in countertransference and transference, but the discoveries prior to the relations were still valid and influential to Freud and his studies. Sigmund Freud is said to be the father of psychoanalysis, and for good reasons. He has a lot of contributions to the field. Freud found that through his practice, patients responded well to techniques of free association, which allow discussion for anything that comes to mind, and thus unconscious information will arise. Freud also analyzed dreams as a part of unconscious thought. He said that dreams are symbolic and repressed unconscious thought. Within dream analysis, he used dream interpretation concepts like displacement, condensation, and dream work. Freud thought that psychoanalytic structure of personality included the id, which was the unconscious, the ego, which is the conscious, and the superego, which is the preconscious personality. Freud famously introduced the psychosexual stages of life. These stages include the oral stage from 0 to 1 year old, the anal stage from 2 to 3 years old, the phallic stage from 4 to 5 years old, the latency stage from 6 to 12, and the genital stage from puberty on. Within his work, Freud also described defense mechanisms such as rationalization, repression, projection, displacement, reaction formation, regression, undoing, and sublimation. Along with all of these discoveries, Freud heavily utilized parapraxis and Freudian slips in everyday life. Freud's work within the field obviously caught wind, and a lot of people had good things to say about it as well as bad things to say about it. And in comparison to contemporary psychoanalysis, these are important critiques and contributions to know. The critiques of Freud's work include a lack of falsifiability, an overemphasis on sex, and the manner of the data collection, and more. There were quite a few critiques about his work, but the contributions included an expansion of psychology's domain into psychoanalysis and the longevity of psychoanalysis, and it helps us with understanding normal behavior. And that will conclude my presentation. Thank you for listening.